Hi, I'm Linda with paperboutique.blogspot.com, and today we're going to be talking about how to get the best results when printing and coloring digital stamps to avoid bleeding. I know we've all tried to use our digital stamps and then colored them with Copic markers or Tombow markers, and the edges of the digital stamp have bled. Well, we're going to talk about how to avoid that today. I like to use my watercolor pencils, which are these, with mineral spirits to color my digital stamps. They work like Copics and Pro markers and cost a great deal less. However, I also love using Copics and have just a few to augment my watercolor pencils. I will post a link on how to make your colored pencils look like expensive alcohol markers on my YouTube channel. Well, I had an Epson color printer, and no matter what technique I tried, I could not keep the black outline ink from bleeding when I colored the image using alcohol or my colored pencil technique. I tried using my heat gun, waiting 12 to 24 hours, and also using an iron. Nothing seemed to work with my Epson printer. Well, after some trial and error, I discovered how to keep the outline ink from bleeding, and here's what I learned. The first two solutions we're going to talk about will only work if you're looking or needing to buy a new printer. And don't worry, if you're not looking for a new printer, I also have a couple of very inexpensive solutions coming up. Well, let me go ahead and move this. I recently bought a Canon Pro 9000 Mark II color inkjet printer. And I'm pleased to say if you buy that particular printer, it works well with both the Copics and the colored pencil technique. And I'm going to use this to point. This was done with the Copics. This is a Copic in a wider area. This is a colored pencil technique. And I'm using white cardstock, Georgia Pacific from Walmart, 110-pound weight. And I printed these images using grayscale and the best quality setting on my printer. These are free digital stamps and also include a link on my YouTube channel. But I don't know if you've noticed it yet. What doesn't work with a Canon inkjet printer is when you use something that isn't an alcohol marker or mineral spirits. That's the Tombow markers. And look what it happens. It bleeds and it gets really, and you can just see it, it gets really muddy. So you really can't use the Canon 9000 for that. Well, let's go on to another option if you're looking to buy a printer, and I know most of us aren't, but I just wanted to talk about them because I did the research. What you can do is I used for these I used a more expensive office printer to test this, and it's a black and white. This one's a black and white Hewlett-Packard. Same paper, the Georgia Pacific. This is a colored Hewlett-Packard office printer, and once again, they're not the inexpensive brands, they're a little bit more expensive. And I'm pleased to say it worked beautifully. But what I found out with the lasers is a color laser, and I don't know that you'll be able to distinguish, even though it's black and white, leaves a much better black image. The black and white will work well, but the best image is this color laser. And you can pick up inexpensive black and white laser printers from Staples if you really want to use your digital stamps and use like your Tombow markers and stuff. But the first two solutions were if you want to go out and buy a new printer. Now I know most of us don't, so I came up with another very inexpensive solution. And let me bring that paper in. Here is the exact, I'm going to move this other one out of the way so I don't get confused. Here's the exact same image, and what I did is I went to Staples and I loaded this on a flash drive and took it in. And Staples will print it on their black and white, and you can see here, this one's done with their black and white laser printer for 20 cents. And the paper at at Staples on the Xerox machine is the Color Expressions paper, and it's beautiful paper. However, I learned something very interesting. There's the black and white, and it's same paper. The paper. This is the Copic. This is the watercolor Copic, and the Tombow marker. Here's the color laser. Now the best result I found at Staples is to go in and use their color laser printer, even though you're just printing black and white. The downside in doing that is if you do go to Staples, they will charge you, even though you're just printing the outline stamp in black and white, 98 cents a page. So that's really not an option for me. I don't think it's cost effective. So you could go ahead and use the black and white laser, but it's not quite as sharp as of an image. And I'm going to come back to this, and I'm going to actually color on this so you can see it. But first I want to tell you what is another very good recommendation, and that is if you go to Office Depot. Now here's the same thing. This is the Copic watercolor Tombow, and this is the black and white laser. At Office Depot it's 18 cents, but at Office Depot, if you want to use their color laser and you do black and white, it's only 18 cents. And if you're looking for the very best image out of all of these, it's the color laser at Office Depot. However, I like the paper at Staples just a little bit better, so you might want to experiment with their black and white laser and Office Depot black and white, because it's 18 cents and this is 20 cents. Well, let me just take a moment and I'm going to show you what happens. I'm just going to use my Copic. Let me use the other tip. And I'll bring this in, and you can just see I'm going right over that, and I'm, you know, coloring outside the lines and not being neat or anything. And it's just perfect coverage. Now I want to show you just briefly, and like I said earlier, there's a video on it, my watercolor technique. I use Crayola inexpensive watercolors. You can use a more expensive watercolor marker, and I just go ahead and color with them. And I'm not going to take your time to do much coloring. I think you've seen this. You'll see this technique in my video. Then what I use is paper stumps that I purchased at Michael's, and I love this technique. And then I use, and I'm going to show you the bottle, odorless mineral spirits. And be sure, even though it's odorless, that you're in a well-ventilated area. And I just poured it into this little tray, and all you do is get the tip of your stump wet, and I don't know if you can see that, but it's blending just beautifully, and it looks like by the time you're done, it looks like you've used a Copic. And you can see it's not, the only thing outside the line is my coloring, but it's not smearing at all. And here is what I consider the ultimate test. Copics and mineral spirits will work on my Canon printer, but the Tombow markers or other watercolor markers won't. And you can see here, look at that. It doesn't, I'm coloring outside the lines once again, but it doesn't bleed at all. So for my recommendation is check out Staples if you have one, or Office Depot for 18 cents, and bring your artwork in on a flash drive, and that I think is the most inexpensive solution, unless you're looking to buy a new printer. Well, I would like to, oh, one other thing before I leave. I don't remember if I mentioned the paper at Office Depot is called Exact Vellum paper, and it is also a very good paper. Well, thanks for visiting, and for more projects and ideas, please visit www.paperboutique.blogspot.com. Bye-bye.